Hi there. So, this is the first episode of a series of building an open source project available as a software as a service as well, called Zenigo. I guess we'll get into the GitHub repo. I'll leave a link to this in the description of the video as well. So here it is, Zenigo. Like I said, I'll leave the URL in the description if you want to go check this out yourself. It's licensed under the MIT license, so it's fully open source. Um, yeah, so it's an all-in-one release management and feedback platform. So think feature flags, blue-green deployments, and general feedback, like bug reports or feature requests. The tech stack, I know you can't really see that. I'll hide my camera for a second. So it's a Nest.js Angular project. I know Angular isn't the most popular tech stack here on YouTube in recent years, but I think it's still a very good framework. And I think they're making a lot of great progress with signals and the new reactive data types like that, and the recent releases. And also Nest.js, which I think is a great framework for building Node.js applications. So it's a monorepo, two monorepos in the single repo, one for the UI, one for the backend. So the API is a Nest.js microservice application with an API gateway. The API gateway isn't is just written in Nest.js as well. It's a very simple API gateway using the Nest.js monorepo functionality. And the UI is an NX monorepo. So all the UI applications, so there'll be a separate website for the documentation, one for the feedback aspect of the application, one for the feature flags aspect of the application. They'll all be kept separate, but they'll share code, so look uh, they'll look similar to each other. Um, so I'll just give you an idea of why I made this software. This is another SaaS that I've worked on called roomulator.com. And basically, I found that the open source the open source feature flag software tended to be quite slow at times, especially the longer you use it. It seems to be have maybe a memory leak or something to that effect. I think it's written in Python, which I think Python is quite a slow language compared to Node.js. Well, especially compared to something like Golang, but uh, I decided to stick with what I know and use Node.js. I think Node.js with Fastify is good enough for this use case. Um, but you might have noticed when the page loaded in there was a slight delay before the buttons showed up. And that's when the feature flag status is being loaded in. On the initial page load, it takes about 4 seconds, and subsequent requests after that are cached, so they're a bit faster. But I would like to speed that up. The initial request should be under a second, and then with cache should be, sub 500 milliseconds. And also, uh, it's good learning to build software like this, and because it's open source, I decided I would record this series just to, document the progress I make on it each week. Um, I will show you another project which is relevant to this. So EchoNexus.io. Um, Basically, it's a small feedback widget application, an easy to use feedback platform. You include a one-line script tag in your HTML code, which will bootstrap a little widget in the bottom right corner of your screen. Um, it's not fully working at the moment because I'm in the process of transitioning into a monorepo for this Zenigo project. So the Zenigo project will have the feature flag aspect as well as the feedback aspect. But I'll see if I can log in here. Check the console. Yeah, like I said, this website is in the process of being taken down, so it's not operational at the moment. But I will show you that once I include this source code. Basically, I'm copy and pasting a lot of the feedback aspect of the application into this Zenigo model repo, and that's where it'll live from now on. And this was closed source. Zenigo will be open source. Um, but the UI style, I was quite happy with the UI style of this application. So I think I will use a similar font, similar theme for Zenigo, and reuse a lot of the code. Um, yeah, I will show you a quick look at my development environment. So if you want to go ahead and leave a star on the GitHub repo, that would be much appreciated. Like I said, I'll leave the link down in the description. And I'll jump into the code really quick. Just show you what I'm working on right now. So, like I said, there's the API gateway, the feature flag service, the feedback service, the identity service, which handles authentication, authorization, stuff like that. Payments, which will handle the SaaS aspect of the software, so the Stripe payments. So if you're hitting the service with a certain amount of load, then I can charge you more because you'll be costing more for the hosting service. You'll also be able to self-host this application because it is open source. I do hope to Dockerize it. I do host most of my projects on Railway, which does support Docker. So the Docker file will already be there. I'm sure I'll write Kubernetes deployment files as well and Helm charts. Create those for ease of use for self-hosting. Like I said, it's a monorepo, so this is the API. So there's the apps, which is the applications, the microservices, and the API gateway. Then there's the libraries. So we have the auth, config, constants, database, cloud storage, validation, and util. It is reliant on Supabase for auth. I don't use the Supabase database aspect, but I do use the OAuth 2 login functionality. So you sign in with Google, sign in with Microsoft, all the providers. I find Supabase is great for that. But you don't have to use that. You can use any OAuth 2. It just uses JOTs, JSON Web Tokens. The UI, like I said, is an NX monorepo using Angular. So we have the dashboard, we have the docs, and we have the main UI. The dashboard would be for managing, for example, your feature flags. Also viewing bug reports. You don't want those to be public, so they'll only be available to admins in the dashboard. The docs will describe, for example, how to install the feedback widget into your application, how to set up feature flags, how to use the SDK, how to use the API. And the UI will be the more public-facing aspect of it. Like forum posts, stuff like that, where people can report issues and upvote and comment on issues that they're having with your application, similar to GitHub. It does take inspiration from other feedback applications like FeatureBase.app, but they're quite expensive, so that's one of the main reasons why I decided to build this, was because I don't think it should cost $50 a month just to gather feedback through a widget embedded into the page. I think $50 a month is a crazy amount of money to ask for that kind of thing. But yeah, I'll just show my Trello board. So quite sparse at the moment. I haven't really sat down and planned anything yet. I'll show you the readme.md in a second in the repo, the task.md, which has most of what I need to do generated by AI. I do use AI nowadays in my coding applications. So what I'm working on now is creating separate database configs. So I do use an ORM called Prisma. You're probably familiar with it if you do any kind of Node.js development or TypeScript development. Basically, each microservice needs to have its own database connection and its own database schema. So right now they share a schema. I need to split that out, and the feedback application already has a schema defined, but I need to create a separate one for the feature flag schema and the identity service. And yeah, then after that I'll create the entire CI/CD pipeline, and then I will host the application on Railway so I can get a live production environment to mess around with and kind of test changes live over the internet. You know, things can break sometimes going from your local machine to the internet. So yeah, I will probably post a video once a week on the progress. Let me know what you want to see. Do you want to see some coding? Do you want to see... I don't have any UI to show yet, but I will have that shortly. But like I said, it will look like that Equinix application. If I still have the tab open, it'll look something like this. Like I said, a lot of this code is going to be reused for the UI. I do use Tailwind CSS and PrimeNG, which is an Angular component library. It's like the equivalent of ShadCN if you're coming from the React world. But yeah, I'll stop the recording here and I'll check in at the end of the block of work I'm about to do and let you know how I got on. Okay. Yeah, so I forgot to show you the tasks.md that the AI agent generated, so I'll just show that really quick. So architecture improvements, so consistent error handling. I do need to do that because I'm using RabbitMQ and Nest.js. It's great for HTTP exceptions propagating, but it's not as good for RabbitMQ and microservice communication. API versioning strategy, that's actually already implemented. Testing, I do need to set up the end-to-end testing framework and everything like that. Improve the CI/CD pipeline, which I'll do after I set up the schemas, which I have almost done now. Performance optimization, yeah. DevOps and infrastructure, I'll set up the Docker files and the Helm charts like I said. That'll be for a later video. And user experience, that'll be more for the UI side of things, so I will make sure the UI is responsive on mobile devices and everything like that. This is just kind of boilerplate kind of stuff. I did skip over the initial project generation because I figured nobody wants to see boilerplate generation. But I'll just show the last microservice, what I've been doing. So in here in the schema.prisma, for example, the feature flag would be a feature flag and a feature flag access group. This is not the final schema. This is just to get the structure up and running and get it connected to the database, the microservice that is. And so it generates from the schema a Prisma client, which I then import Prisma client as feature flag Prisma client from generated client, then use this Prisma module from the monorepo library, which I have already created from another project, from the Roomulator project actually, and that will connect to the database using that schema client. Yeah, so the last thing to do is the payment service. So I just created a payment plan with ID created it, updated it. This is obviously not a full schema, but it's something to get the structure up and running. So if I cd into payment service, then run npx prisma generate, you'll notice that the output is /generated/client. So that'll put it into this folder here, a generated client, which I can then import into the app module. So that'll generate the client there. And now in the payment service module, import Prisma client. Let's see. Doesn't seem to want to autocomplete for me. Prisma module dot register payments Prisma client. And I'm actually just going to run the microservices. Let me check Docker. Do I have a database running? I do. I have a Postgres and a RabbitMQ instance running. So if I run this orchestrate start, that'll start all the microservices, including the API gateway. So actually on the feature flag and the feedback service, I do need to set up the identity service and the payment service to run in that npm script as well. But yeah, those two are connecting anyway. Something going on in the API gateway there, the throttler module. I'll need to set that up, but the microservices are starting anyway using the new client, and you see Prisma connected for client from the feature flag service and the feedback service. So I've done the same thing for identity and payments, so that should work for those two as well. I'll verify that at another time. Yeah. Let me know what you guys want to see. I'm probably going to do a more coding oriented video, record one after this, and I'll title the video accordingly, so maybe some people just want to hear about the progress and the business aspect or the software development lifecycle aspect, and some people just want to see coding. So I'll try to cater to both audiences. I'm kind of in the mood to do a bit of coding this evening, so I'll probably record a separate video, but I'll end this one here if you want, you can check the extended recording. And like I said, GitHub repo in the description, so please give it a star. I'd really appreciate that. And if you like this video, feel free to leave a like or leave a comment with some feedback. All feedback is welcome. Yeah, thank you for watching. Okay.